guys, today we're going to be making a Wayne Thiebaud inspired sculpture. So we are going to be needing for this some Model Magic. You can use colored Model Magic if you want, pre-colored, so you have a variety of colors. I'm actually going to be using white because that way I can actually make my own colors however I want, whatever I want, and I'm not limited by the pre-made ones. If you are choosing white, you're also going to need markers, water-based markers, not permanent markers, so no Sharpies here. And then you're going to want something to use as the base for your sculpture. I'm going to be using this little cup with a lid. If you have another sort of piece that you could use, we call it an armature. An armature, it's something that is inside that you build your sculpture around. It kind of gives it its shape. If you have something else you want to use, then that's great. This is the material that I'm going to be using. And you also will probably need some sort of glue. Liquid glue, glue stick, something like that, just to help to make sure that this material is actually going to stick to your armature really well. So let's get started. When you pull your Model Magic out of the packaging, it will be somewhat soft, but it won't be super insanely soft. So we want to soften this up a little bit, and we also don't want to color this entire lump of modeling clay with one color. We want to have a variety of colors. So looking at my armature, I think what I'm going to be creating is a sort of cupcake type of design. This is going to be the bottom of the cupcake, and the lid is going to be where I'm going to be putting the frosting on the top of it. So I do know I need enough to completely surround the bottom base, but I also want plenty to build on top. So I think I'm going to divide this up, not quite in half, but I think the larger portion I'm going to save for building my cupcake top. I think this smaller portion I will be using for the bottom. If you want to make sure that it will fit, you can sort of flatten it out and see if it will surround the base. I think that that is going to make it all the way around if I just stretch it and mold it a little bit more. So I think that there'll be plenty for the bottom, and then I will be able to use this for the top. So I'm going to start with the bottom color, and I have to decide what I want for the bottom of my cupcake. I'm going to be just softening this up by spreading it apart and pulling it back together again to create sort of a nice soft and I want to add some color to this for my base. So I have to decide what color I want. Now, if this is a cupcake, it should have a cupcake wrapper on it, I would assume, which means it could be really any color I want it to be at all. I think I'm going to go with sort of a yellow or yellow-orange color. So I think I'm going to take out these two shades, and I think I'm going to just start using one color at a time, and I'll add another color on top as I see fit. So this is how you're going to add ink to your modeling clay. So I'm going to take my Model Magic, flatten it out, and I'm going to color my ink on top. The reason why I'm flattening out is I want to create a lot of surface area that will really allow me to get a lot of ink on it, because I don't want this mixing process to take too long, and if I keep my surface area really small, then I'm going to have to do this a lot of times. So now I'm going to be mixing the ink into the white, and you'll see that it'll slowly start transforming the entirety of the modeling clay to the color that you colored with. But it will be a lighter color. This is definitely a much lighter shade of yellow than what I started with, and that's because you're mixing it with white. Okay, so anything that's mixed with white is going to lighten it up a lot. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to go again, adding some more ink, flattening it out, trying to get that ink really saturated into it. And if you wanted your color to not be 100% purely the color that you've chosen, you can always dot it with a secondary color and mix it in and just sort of create your own custom color. So I'm going to keep repeating this process of coloring, flattening it out, coloring it with ink, and then mixing it again until I get the tone and the color that I'm looking for. I do recommend, especially with yellows and pinks for some reason, the yellows and pinks tend to fade a little bit when they are left out to dry. So I do recommend, especially with those two colors, really doing a lot of layers to make sure you really saturate that color the way you want it. Once you get the tone that you're going for, whatever that might be, you are going to start applying it to your base, to your armature. So I'm going to flatten this out a little bit just to kind of stretch it out a little bit. And I'm going to start placing it on my base. Now, if I'm concerned about it not sticking, this does feel like it has quite a sticky quality to it. But if it's concerning, like I don't think it's going to stick very well, I can take some glue, adhere a little glue to the base first, and that way when the glue dries and as the Model Magic dries, they will kind of like stick together. That's the idea behind that. I have completely surrounded the bottom of my cupcake design with the color that I chose. I do have a little extra left. I'm going to hold on to that just in case I need it or I want to put it on top. And I'm ready to work on my lid. The side would be cool to see with some textures. So for that, I can either use a pencil or I could use even an unfolded paper clip to sort of create the texture that I'm going for. As you know, many cupcakes have the ridges on the side, so I'm just going to take this paper clip and I'm just going to use it to create some indentations all the way around. You want to make sure you're doing textures like this while the clay is still soft so that it will make the imprint, and then just be very careful afterwards that you don't touch it so that those indentations, those imprints will stay there as it dries. All right, so now I have the bottom of my cupcake wrapper all finished. It definitely looks a lot more like a wrapper now. And I'm going to next start building my frosting. So I have to decide how many pieces you're going to want, how many colors you're going to want. Are you going to use one solid color for the entire frosting top? Do you think that you're going to want to have a couple different colors to work with? Do you want just a little bit of something extra so that you can make sprinkles or cherries or where else it might be? So you have to kind of make that decision. But before you fully make that decision, I want to show you one thing that you might be interested in is maybe instead of just having one solid color for your frosting top, you might want to have sort of a multicolor where you put two or more colors together and create sort of a marbled or unicorn effect. So I have a little piece of blue and a little piece of orange to demonstrate this. If I put these in a larger form, you would have plenty to make your frosting top with it. So take a little piece of one color, a little piece of color, and you can start mixing them together. You want to be real careful you don't mix them that much. So maybe like a few times, like that's probably all you need. And then you're going to end up with a really cool marbled effect. When you start rolling this out, you're going to see a really neat sort of swirly marbled effect where you have that orange and blue both showing. If you mix it too much, it's going to start turning muddy and a totally different color. But if you like the idea of layering two colors together to create a really cool swirly marbled effect, then that you might want to consider too when you're choosing your colors. Okay, so we're going to choose what colors we want and then mix them up using the marker. Once you're there, I'm going to demonstrate how to do the frosting top. Okay, so I added the colors that I wanted for my frosting. I have blue and pink. I'm going to mix those together to create a marbled effect. And I still have a little left over of my cupcake bottom, and I have a little bit of yellow and a little bit of purple because I thought I might want to use that for little decorations. So I'm going to take my bigger pieces and I'm going to mix them together. Remember, not mix them too much because I don't want to lose the colors. And I'm going to show you how to create a swirly, twirly top to create the frosting top of your cupcake. Okay, so So I've mixed them together, took me a few seconds to do, and I have some of that pink swirling through my blue. And now what we're going to do is you're going to take your big piece and you're going to roll it out into a coil. Basically taking your fingers and you're going to roll gently back and forth on your table and concentrate on the areas that are a little thicker. You don't really want to over roll in the areas that are too thin. If you do, it's not the worst thing in the world. We can always squish them back together, but I'm trying really hard to spread it out. And what's going to happen is your coil is going to get longer and longer. The more you roll it, the thinner it's going to be, but also longer it's going to be. And we do want it to be pretty long because we want to be able to stack this up into creating a really cool spiral sort of turret on top of our cupcake. Okay, so I rolled it out to about the thickness of a pen, like a Sharpie pen, or maybe about the thickness of a pencil, maybe a little bit than a pencil. That's a pretty good thickness, I think, and I have a lot to work with here. So I'm going to start by making sure that I'm creating the right width for my circle, the right diameter. So I'm going to put my coil on top, and I'm going to slowly work my way around so I make sure that the circumference around it is correct. Now I'm going to start putting it on top of the one that I just did. So I'm going to layer it on top, but I'm going to do it sort of at an angle. So it's not directly on top, it's a little bit angled on top of it. And by doing that, it's forcing it to go in and start creating a point. So I'm putting it on top of the last one I did, and you're going to see the opening is starting to get smaller and smaller as I do this, until I get to the end where I'm ready to fill in this opening. So I'm going to just sort of gently fill it in. Now I should be able to gently lift this off so that I can play around with it, make sure that things are sealed well. Be very gentle when you're at this point. You don't want to grab it too hard and smush the shape of your spiral, but you should end up with a really cool spiral tower sort of shape. Now, when you're ready to attach it, you're going to add that glue step. We're going to add that glue to it to make sure that it really sticks to it when it dries. But if you're not quite ready to do that because you have other things you want to add to it, feel free to add a few more details, like maybe some sprinkles. I might want to take a little chunk of a piece, roll it between my fingers, create a little skinny piece that I can use as a sprinkle to put on top. So I'm going to be doing that right now, just adding a few little sprinkles, a few little details. Generally, you should be able to add Model Magic to Model Magic without it needing to be glued, because they do sort of stick well to each other. You really only need the glue if you're gluing it to an object, a foreign object. Once you're happy with your design top, you are going to permanently adhere it to your container by gluing it on. If you feel like it's not quite the right shape anymore, you can gently pull the sides to make sure it fits more securely and snugly onto your top. And if you feel like the glue stick is not quite enough glue, you could also instead use liquid glue or some other type of strong glue if you feel like you need something with a little bit more oomph to keep it really secure. Notice I only put glue on the outside rim because that's the only part that will be touching the cupcake top. The inside is not going to touch anything, so there's really no point in gluing that area. Okay, and there you have it, your finished, awesome Wayne Thiebaud inspired cupcake sculpture. Definitely give this a good 24 hours before you handle it too roughly. And I hope you guys had fun making these cupcakes with me. I certainly did, and I can't wait to see some of your tasty creations.